Mengistu Haile Mariam, born 1937, Kefah Province, Ethiopia, Ethiopian Army officer and head of state, 1974–91, who helped overthrow the centuries-old monarchy and attempted to mold Ethiopia into a communist state. Mengistu received officer training at Wielded and additional training in the United States. Rising to the rank of major, he became one of a group of junior officers and enlisted men who, discontented with their lack of patronage and promotion within the military, plotted rebellion against the government of Emperor Haile Selassie I. In June 1974, Mengistu was made chairman of the Armed Forces Coordinating Committee, known as the Derg, a committee of revolutionary soldiers, and, after the arrest of the emperor in September, he was made a vice chairman of the Provisional Military Administrative Council, PMAC, which was run by the Derg and which assumed the functions of government. On November 23, 1974, Mengistu ordered the assassination of the PMAC's moderate chairman and urged the killing of 60 aristocrats and former officials of the old imperial regime. By killing selected enemies within the PMAC, Mengistu became the acknowledged strongman of a regime that proceeded to nationalize industries and farmlands. In February 1977, Mengistu, now a lieutenant colonel, survived a battle between his supporters and those of rivals on the PMAC. The chairman and several other members were killed, and Mengistu became head of state and chairman. He then unleashed a bloody Red Terror campaign to crush armed opponents among the civilian populace, and later that year he solicited Soviet weaponry and Cuban troops to repel an invasion of the Somali-speaking Ogaden region by Somalia. As undisputed ruler of the country, he oversaw the establishment of the Workers' Party of Ethiopia in 1984, the drafting of a constitution for Ethiopia in 1986, endorsed in 1987, and the election by a new national legislature of himself as president in September 1987. By then Mengistu faced armed rebellion in the northern regions of Tigray and Eritrea, a series of the worst droughts and famines ever to afflict Ethiopia, an agricultural economy ruined by the forced collectivization of farms and the relocation of entire populations, and occasional coup attempts by enemies within the regime. The withdrawal of Soviet support further weakened Mengistu's power, and in May 1991 he summarily resigned his post and fled to Zimbabwe. Successor Ethiopian regimes unsuccessfully lobbied the Zimbabwean government for Mengistu's extradition on charges of genocide. Tried in absentia, he was found guilty of genocide in December 2006 and was given a life sentence the next year. Following a successful appeal from the prosecution, which argued that Mengistu's crimes merited more than a life sentence, in May 2008 he was sentenced to death. Mengistu Haile Mariam, born May 21, 1937, is an Ethiopian former politician, former army officer and dictator, who was the head of state of Ethiopia from 1977 to 1991 and General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Ethiopia from 1984 to 1991. He was the chairman of the Derg, the socialist military junta that governed Ethiopia, from 1977 to 1987, and the President of the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, PDRE, from 1987 to 1991. He took power in the Ethiopian Revolution following the overthrow of Emperor Haile Selassie I in 1974, marking the end of the Solomonic dynasty which had ruled Ethiopia since the 13th century. Mengistu purged rivals for power from the Derg and made himself dictator of Ethiopia, attempting to modernize the feudal economy of Ethiopia through Marxist-Leninist-inspired policies such as nationalization and land redistribution. His bloody consolidation of power in 1977 to 1978 is known as the Ethiopian Red Terror, a brutal crackdown on opposition groups and civilians following a failed assassination attempt by the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Party, EPRP, in September 1976, after it had ignored the Derg's invitation to join the Union of Socialist Parties. The death toll is unknown but is often estimated at between 30,000 and 750,000. Internal rebellion, government repression, and economic mismanagement characterized Mengistu's presidency, the Red Terror period being a battle for dominance between the Derg, the EPRP, and their rival the All Ethiopia Socialist Movement, MISON, which had initially aligned itself with the Derg. While this internal conflict was being fought, Ethiopia was threatened by both the Somali invasion and the guerrilla campaign of the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, who demanded independence for Eritrea, then a province of Ethiopia. The Ogaden War of 1977 to 1978 with Somalia, fought over a disputed border region, Ogaden, was notable for the prominent role of Mengistu's Soviet and Cuban allies in securing an Ethiopian victory. The catastrophic famine of 1983 to 1985 is what brought his government the most international attention. Mengistu fled to Zimbabwe in May 1991 after the PDRE National Shengo dissolved itself and called for a transitional government. His departure brought an abrupt end to the Ethiopian civil war. Mengistu Haile Mariam still lives in Harare, Zimbabwe, despite an Ethiopian court verdict which found him guilty of genocide in absentia. Mengistu's government is estimated to be responsible for the deaths of 500,000 to 2 million Ethiopians, mostly during the 1983 to 1985 famine in Ethiopia. Emperor Haile Selassie's government, having lost the confidence of the Ethiopian public following a drought and crop failures in Wollo province, was overthrown in the Ethiopian Revolution of 1974. As a result, power came into the hands of a committee of low-ranking officers and enlisted soldiers led by Atnafo Abate, which came to be known as the Derg. Mengistu was originally one of the lesser members, officially sent to represent the 3rd Division because his commander, General Negategnan, considered him a troublemaker and wanted to get rid of him. Between July and September 1974, through sheer demagoguery and political intrigues, Mengistu succeeded to outmaneuver all officers who stood in his way and climbed the political ladder. Mengistu and Atnafo Abate were the deputy chairman of Derg from March 1975 to February 1977. Haile Selassie was strangled in 1975. It is rumored that Mengistu smothered the emperor using a pillowcase, but Mengistu has denied these rumors. Though several groups were involved in the overthrow, the Derg succeeded to power. There is no doubt that the Derg under Mengistu's leadership ordered the execution without trial of 61 ex-officials of the imperial government on November 23, 1974, and later of numerous other former nobles and officials including the Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, Abuna Theophilos, in 1977. Mengistu himself has acknowledged that the Derg ordered these deaths but refuses to accept personal responsibility. Members of the Derg have contradicted him in interviews given from prison, saying he conspired and was in full agreement with their decisions. Mengistu did not emerge as the leader of the Derg until after the February 3, 1977 shootout, in which Chairman Tafari Benti was killed. The vice-chairman of the Derg, Atnafo Abate, clashed with Mengistu over the issue of how to handle the war in Eritrea and lost, leading to his execution with 40 other officers, clearing the way for Mengistu to assume control. He formally assumed power as head of state, and justified his execution of Abate, on November 13 of that year, by claiming that he had placed the interests of Ethiopia above the interests of socialism and undertaken other counter-revolutionary activities. Under Mengistu, Ethiopia received aid from the Soviet Union, other members of the Warsaw Pact, and Cuba. Resistance against the Derg ensued, led primarily by the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Party, EPRP. Mengistu cracked down on the EPRP and other revolutionary student organizations in what would become called the Red Terror. The Derg subsequently turned against the socialist student movement MISON, a major supporter against the EPRP, in what would be called the White Terror. The EPRP's efforts to discredit and undermine the Derg and its MISON collaborators escalated in the fall of 1976. It targeted public buildings and other symbols of state authority for bombings and assassinated numerous ousted and MISON members, as well as public officials at all levels. The Derg, which countered with its own counter-terrorism campaign, labeled the EPRP's tactics the White Terror. Mengistu asserted that all progressives were given freedom of action in helping root out the revolution's enemies, and his wrath was particularly directed toward the EPRP. Peasants, workers, public officials, and even students thought to be loyal to the Mengistu regime were provided with arms to accomplish this task. In a public speech in April 1977, Mengistu shouted death to counter-revolutionaries. Death to the EPRP. And then produced 3 bottles filled with a red liquid that symbolized the blood of the imperialists and the counter-revolutionaries and smashed them to the ground to show what the revolution would do to its enemies. Thousands of young men and women turned up dead in the streets of the capital and other cities in the following months. They were systematically murdered mainly by the militia attached to the cabals, the neighborhood watch committees which served during Mengistu's reign as the lowest level local government and security surveillance units. Families had to pay the cabals a tax known as the wasted bullet to obtain the bodies of their loved ones. In May 1977, the Swedish General Secretary of the Save the Children Fund stated that 1,000 children have been killed, and their bodies are left in the streets and are being eaten by wild hyenas. You can see the heaped up bodies of murdered children, most of them aged 11 to 13, lying in the gutter, as you drive out of Addis Ababa. Military gains made by the monarchist Ethiopian Democratic Union in Bagumdar were rolled back when that party split just as it was on the verge of capturing the old capital of Gondar. The army of the Somali Democratic Republic invaded Ethiopia, having overrun the Ogaden region, and was on the verge of capturing Harar and Dire Dawa, when Somalia's erstwhile allies, the Soviets and the Cubans, launched an unprecedented arms and personnel airlift to come to rescue of Ethiopia. The Derg government turned back the Somali invasion and made deep strides against the Eritrean secessionists and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, as well. By the end of the 70s, Mengistu presided over the second largest army in all of sub-Saharan Africa, as well as a formidable air force and navy. Amnesty International estimates that up to 500,000 people were killed during the Ethiopian Red Terror. By 1990, the Soviet Union had all but ended its support for Mengistu's regime. In May 1991, the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, EPRP, forces advanced on Addis Ababa from all sides, and Mengistu fled the country with 50 family and Derg members. He was granted asylum in Zimbabwe as an official guest of Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe. Although Mugabe has since been removed from power in 2017, no new extradition requests have been submitted. Mengistu left behind almost the entire membership of the original Derg and the WPE leadership. The regime only survived without him for another week before the EPRP streamed into the capital, precluding the previous leadership's escape. Almost all were promptly arrested and put on trial upon the assumption of power by the EPRP. Mengistu has claimed that the takeover of his country resulted from the policies of Mikhail Gorbachev, who in his view allowed the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the termination of its aid to Ethiopia. An assassination attempt against Mengistu occurred on November 4, 1995, while he was out walking with his wife, Wielded Kibisha, near his home in the Gunhill suburb of Harare. While Mengistu was unharmed, his alleged attacker, Solomon Haile Gebre Michael, an Eritrean, was shot and arrested by Mengistu's bodyguards. He was later tried for this assassination attempt, pleading not guilty in a Zimbabwean court on July 8, 1996. The Eritrean ambassador to South Africa, Tsagayi Tesfa-Sion, flew to Harare to attend the trial. The attacker was sentenced to 10 years in prison, while his accomplice Abraham Golatam Joseph, who had been arrested in a police raid, was sentenced to 5 years. They said that they had been tortured under Mengistu, and on appeal, their sentences were reduced to 2 years each due to mitigatory circumstances. The Ethiopian ambassador to Zimbabwe, Fantahun Haile Michael, said his government was not involved in the assassination attempt, and that he heard about the incident from the media. As of 2018, Mengistu still resided in Zimbabwe, despite the Ethiopian government's desire that he be extradited. He is said to live in luxurious circumstances, and it is claimed that he advised Mugabe on security matters, According to Zimbabwean intelligence sources, he proposed the idea of clearing slums, which was implemented as Operation Murambatsvina in 2005, and chaired meetings at which the operation was planned. However, the State Security Minister Didymus Mutises strongly denied that Mengistu was involved in Operation Murambatsvina. In 2018, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia Haile Mariam published a photo of himself meeting with Mengistu. He withdrew the photo after criticism. Mengistu was charged by the Ethiopian government led by Meles Zenawi, in absentia, for the killing of nearly 2,000 people. The charge sheet and evidence list for his crimes were 8,000 pages long. The evidence against him included signed execution orders, videos of torture sessions, and personal testimony. The trial began in 1994 and ended in 2006. The court found Mengistu guilty as charged on December 12, 2006, and imposed a life sentence in January 2007. In addition to the genocide conviction, the court found him guilty of imprisonment, illegal homicide, and illegal confiscation of property. In 2010, Mengistu announced the publication of his memoirs. In early 2012, a manuscript of the memoir, entitled Tiglachin, Our Struggle in Amharic, was leaked onto the internet. Some months later the first leaked volume was published in the United States, and in 2016 the second volume followed. This time it was published in Ethiopia. Mengistu accused the remnants of the EPRP of leaking the first volume to sabotage his publication. Mengistu married Wuban Kabisha in 1968. They have a son, Andane, and daughters, Tigist and Timi Herd. Mengistu has resided in Zimbabwe, due to his friendship with Robert Mugabe, ever since 1991. Thank you for watching this video.